When niggas do that
that's
shit,
that's why we
hold on, fam. Hold on, bro. My nigga, listen.
Okay.
When niggas do that shit based on a motherfucker's teaching, my nigga, I ain't finna leave that nigga hanging.
Peace community, peace community. Do maybe make sure my vocals is right. Hold up. Let me make sure my vocals is right. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Let me get that right. You already know the vibes. Okay, let me get my headphones. Let's get in the vibe. Let's see what's going on. All right. Peace community, peace community. We live, man. We rocking. Let me drop the link in the description box off the rip. Shout out to everybody rocking with us. Shout out to NYLAH B. Shout out to African Goddess. Shout out to Levon. Shout out to Miss Embassy. Shout out to everybody, all of the great leaders in my chat. You already know the vibe. We appreciate y'all. Shout out to the best channel on the community. Because we bring everybody together, man. It's about everybody and just lifting everyone. So that's what it's all about. Everybody is a part of being the best, man. So that's what it's all about, man. Let me drop this link, though. Drop this link off the rip. Sometimes I be slow to be doing shit. I be talking. Yeah, I be like, drop the link, nigga. Nigga, drop the link, nigga. Fuck you talk about, drop the link, nigga. You know what I'm saying? So I be knowing how I be. I be knowing how I be. You already know. $ community. Support the community. Donate to the community. We doing a lot of great things here and in the real world. We helping people everywhere, all through the internet and the real world. That's what we all about here. Salute to everybody that's pulling up. This is how we going to be doing this thing right here. We're going to be having a group discussion. Not only me, everybody. We waiting for everybody to start pulling up. NYLAH B, everybody. We want everybody talking about topics. Cynthia G talking about she will not help. You know what I mean? She's like all of the people that she's talking about, these black men. You would think that as a black person, you would want to help some people regardless, even if they're not getting it. Some of them are not getting it. We still want to sometimes help them, right? But she said, nah, man, you're not helping no failures and things like that. So, you know what I mean? A younger person grows up to be, at least a young hater grow up to be an old hater. You know what I'm saying? Not to say some things that Cynthia say is not right and some things that maybe like a Kevin Samuel don't say is right or something that anyone on the internet may say is not right. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, you still saying that you won't help nobody? That's kind of crazy because that is the crux question that even people in the chat was asking, like, what has she done for people? What would she do? And then she ended up answering the same question that one of the great leaders that was asking one of y'all in the chat a little while ago. So, you know, I thought that was key in the conversation. Tell me what y'all thinking though. NYLAH B, everybody's able to jump in live, man. Kiana, y'all lucky. She at work right now. She the kid came in and gave y'all a 1-2 cents. Yeah, man. Y'all tell me what y'all thinking. We here, we rocking, we in the community. Salute to y'all, man. Let's get into it. Anywhere y'all want to go, anywhere y'all minds at, this is where we at.
Hey, you know what, Uda?
What's up, John?
It sounds like she got so many issues in the past. She had so many problems, traumatic experiences with men.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where she projects that off on everybody else, on the black community, especially black men. Especially when you're a masculine woman. You know, you got to be the dominant one. You got to be the loudest one. You know, you got to be the lion, taking care of the cubs and everything else. But she's not a lion. She's not an alpha. Like a man should know his place, a woman should know his place. I'm not saying that on a feminist type shit. I'm just saying like there's roles for everybody. You look at nature.
What you can't do is point fingers and say an absolute about someone that we really don't know about, because we don't know if this woman has problems with black men.
I've seen this 1,000 times. Like,
but you don't know this woman personally. Like I don't agree with a whole lot of things that she's talking about, but you know we can't put labels on people. I just don't agree with labels.
Okay. Labels in the sense of what? You mean?
All right, let me rephrase that.
You're right. Saying that she was hurt or she went through something in her past, and that may not be so. It may be just be her assessment.
Let me rephrase that.
You really know that and can say that as an absolute.
Agree with that point. Okay, so
let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase that. Well, okay. What happens is you got like a lot of black women where they want to portray that alpha role, that masculine role, you know, and a lot of times that comes back, like, aside from brainwashing, aside from what you see in the music and Hollywood and everything else, like, aside from all that, like, some of these women were hurt in their lives though, you know, and the thing is, like, they need therapy or whatever it is, like, to get them over that so they can heal, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I agree with you. You're
Yeah,
right,
I
though.
agree. I agree
I
with
can't
that.
label
Yeah,
somebody.
what you
But
said, I
sometimes people
definitely
put
agree with.
themselves in a
Yes, sir.
box, though. Sometimes people put themselves in a box that allows them to be labeled, though.
Okay, what you said, Nikwa? What you were saying?
I feel like, I get what the brother is saying. I wouldn't necessarily put labels, but I can say that only way a woman, any
Yeah,
woman in any race, can you hear me?
no, I hear you, Queen. I'm telling
Okay.
the chat, y'all can join us live. Everybody join live. Let's talk about this. Everybody, come
Okay.
on. Yeah, Queen, continue your bill. Sorry to cut your wisdom.
Yeah. I feel like, any woman from any race, like, they've been through something in their life or somebody they know been through something with someone that can cause them to put this predisposition against all of a certain type of man or this and that. They've been through something. They definitely have, or they saw something happen with the same type of people, and like they say, oh no, y'all ain't this, y'all ain't that. But the number one thing is, like, if you want to be the alpha person in the relationship, you want to be the masculine person in the relationship, then you can't say that 1 minute, oh, I need somebody to take over, and then you want to be the person that takes over, but then complain about the person not taking over, if that makes sense to you. However, I can say that men aren't allowing women to be feminine because we don't have that much security around us in any situation. Like with being missing or being sexually assaulted, anything, we are like treated the worst. So we have to actually be masculine and feminine because we don't have a choice at this point. Like if you look at the world, we're forced to be like the alpha.
What does anybody have to say? Sister Nandy, you here? What is your take on anything, Sister Nandy? I just want everybody to get a chance to be heard so that we can
Ain't
keep.
he in here? Awesome.
Yeah. Guys, Sister Nandy. Everybody's able to join us live. 4P Civil War. Everybody, man. Kings, queens, everybody, man. We need us all talking about situations that involve us as a people. Guys, Sister Nandy.
Let me say this first. Peace to the panel.
Peace, Queen.
I'm not saying, like I said, there's some good men and some bad men, and choices you make is what your results end up as. I think everybody need to be careful about their choices. A lot of these women that's over there arguing their points, they have met men within 2 or 3 months. They have conceived children with these men, and their attitudes is stemming from certain things that they have been through. I've been through a lot of stuff myself, but that doesn't make me come out here and put all black men in the box as a collective. Another thing that I wanted to speak on, that's the reason why I went off on them. Their demeanor is terrible. They're trying to put this white man on a pedestal. They asked the brothers, why are you not fighting the black man? Why the hell they ain't fighting Becky?
Exactly.
If we can
The
have
one I put
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the same ones that put the same the agenda in their heads. If you look back through history, that started in the 60s with liberal white women taking black women and telling them, "No, you don't need the black man, you don't need this." And they started substituting for black men all these government programs and welfare and everything else. Because if you look at the history, that's where that came from. So
Yeah, I definitely
well,
don't
they
agree
got to
with
smoke. They got to smoke
white
for
people
us, but
being
they
a
don't got to smoke
deity
for
or
Becky.
whatever we put the pedestal on. I don't agree with white people being a deity. They're just people, just like us.
They piss, they poop, they piss, they crap, they breathe the
put
same
their
as us.
pants
So,
on
you
the
know what I
same
mean?
as we do. So I don't agree with putting them up on
Exactly.
a pedestal to where we looking up to them like, oh well, we not up to the white folks standard. They have, you know what I'm saying, they have their own atrocities and things that they've done within their community. So we can't look at them for an example. We have to create our own example of how we want to live and how we want to do things, and stop making them the scapegoat or stop making them the card or the standard of how we're supposed to live, because we are our own community. We are our own people and everything. So who cares about what they're doing?
Let me add something
I
to
agree.
that. Let me add something to that right
Finish your
quick.
bill. Yes, Sister Nandy. Finish your
I
bill.
wanted to say something else.
Yeah. Finish your bill.
Historically, these women don't do their research.
Okay.
If we go back and look in documents, there were actually laws against slaves being married. Nope. What?
No, yeah, she ain't lying.
No, that was actually laws written. While she's saying that the black man didn't fight to be with the black woman, the black man didn't do this. There was laws and there was certain things that kept the black man and woman separated. And while she's telling that lie, The white woman was the actual first person to go to court to be able to marry black men. We can look that up in interracial marriage laws that was going on during slave times. It was white women who wanted black men so bad to the point where they not only went against their white men, they also took the white man to court.
Oh,
So
wow, interesting.
Yeah, let me find it. While y'all building, let me find it and share my screen.
Yeah. You can find that and share the screen. Y'all can continue.
Yeah, I would really like to learn that because I thought it was the white man who went to the petition the court to marry the black woman.
No, actually, I did a video on it the other day, right? When the suffrage movement, when you talk about the suffrage movement, when the feminist movement was going on, they don't want to speak about that. There was also other things going on, and one thing was that the white woman wanted to marry the black man. This is why they wrote the laws in. I did a whole video on it, and I showed the entire video referencing the white woman fighting in the suffrage movement. And one of the things was for her to be able to marry a black man. So don't make it seem like...
Is that video still up, Auntie?
Yeah, it's still up on my page.
Okay.
You'll go in there and see the truth about history or the misinformation of history.
Okay.
And I went in there about the feminists, and the feminist movement was definitely not what it is today. If you look back on the suffrage movement and the feminist movement, our black women separated from that shit. They realized voting wasn't so important when we was over here fighting for freedom. That's why you got the suffrage movement for the white women and the suffrage movement for the black. And it's funny that they actually go against, our black sisters and stuff is when the suffrage movement was going on.
Not to cut you off, but it's funny you say that though, because
go ahead.
We don't hear you, John.
That makes sense. So that's why they tie. If you look at history, that's why they tie our right to vote to women's right to vote. So if you look at it, we got rights at around the same time.
No, we didn't.
So it all makes sense.
No. I don't mean to cut you off, and I'm gonna show my.
But I feel it's in more of the puzzle, because.
So let me ask you a question, Auntie. I heard.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
No, baby, I ain't saying you wrong. I'm just saying no, we didn't. That's the lie that they told in history. Technically, we didn't get our voting rights until the '60s with the civil rights movement.
Right.
We weren't even involved in that. When we first started to try to participate with the white woman in the suffrage movement, the black woman was still treated like shit. We had to march in the back of the white women. This is why you got Sojourner Truth and all of these different people. I'm trying to remember which sister.
It hasn't changed either.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which sister it was that ran to the front of the white women's moving. Because, see, it wasn't us. We didn't have any placement in the governmental system at that time. So what the fuck did we need to vote for anyway? White women wanted to work. It wasn't all about voting. They wanted to work. They wanted to participate in doing the same thing that the white man is doing. That's why I don't understand about these babbling ass women who feel like they're supposed to sit on their ass while the black man do everything. That wasn't the movement.
I heard, and you're a Panther. So I have heard that back in the day that the Panthers had sent some women out to join the feminist movement to dismantle the white system.
That's not true. That's
not true? Okay.
No, baby, that's not true. Now let me clear that up because I've been hearing that a lot. We had one woman that joined the feminist movement, and she was not a Black Panther, which was Angela Davis.
Oh.
Angela Davis was not a Black Panther. She was affiliated with the Soledad brothers, if everybody is familiar with who that is.
No, I'm not familiar who those are, but I'm pretty sure you'll educate me on who they are.
George Jackson had a liking for her sister Angela Davis. This is how she came to play, and George Jackson was an affiliate of the Black Panther movement. So because of her affiliation of the George Jackson and the Soledad brothers movement, revolutionary movements that they did inside of the prisons, people automatically assumed that Angela Davis was a Black Panther. Anybody can Google this while I'm talking. She's not a Black Panther. She never was.
Okay.
Her entire purpose, she was another infiltrator. She was a half-breed, and she's now married to a white woman.
Yeah, she is.
Because majority of the time that the suffrage movement was going on, it was a bunch of, I'm going to say Skittles, because I try to be respectful, a bunch of Skittles white women.
Got it. I know what you're saying when you mean with Skittles. I know what that means.
So no, she was not a Black Panther. It was only one woman that joined that, and that was Angela Davis. You don't hear anything about Asada Shakur, Fina, Elaine Brown, Erica Huggins, all of the originators and the real strong sisters of the Black Panther movement ever even being involved with that. And a lot of them hate Angela Davis for the shit that she did because we weren't separated. Sisters and brothers was together. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of chauvinistic shit that was going on when it came to the brothers, but that shit balanced out. You seen when them brothers got locked up, them sisters was on the front line. They was busting guns, they was blowing up shit. They had to hold the shit down until the brothers got released. Shit, Huey got locked up 6 months until the organization started.
Right, he got locked up early. Yeah, I remember that.
So no, and it was a lot, but people don't look at it in the Black Panther Party. It was more sisters than brothers that was in the party. People don't believe that. It was more, hey, being real, it was more sisters than brothers. Brothers started joining eventually.
Right, yeah, that's what I heard, that it was more sisters than brothers actually in the party.
Exactly, and they were the ones pushing the movement. Now, I'm not saying that the brothers were standing up, busting their guns and stuff, but the sisters was putting the flyers out. The sisters was running the schools. It was a whole lot. The men was doing what they were supposed to do. The sisters played their position, protect and step up and be, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to say show their masculinity when it was time. Busting them guns when our brothers had guns at their head. But the brothers were out there with the guns all the time, but we were trained. You got to train your women to use them ratchets too. No disrespect. If you come outdoors,
yeah, you have to. You can't shoot anybody indiscriminate and don't know how to shoot a weapon. I totally agree.
Exactly. See, if you coming outdoors, just like a situation with NYLAH, that video he just showed.
You know what I was saying? What I was saying earlier. You know what I said earlier?
I'm listening, sweetie.
You know what I said?
Yes, sir.
No, I said earlier is like in 1870 we were given the right to vote after the Civil War, right? But in 1965 they pretty much it was all political. They just made it where you can't discriminate against somebody like voting. Like in 1965, that's where people get it. That's where people get it wrong. But the 15th Amendment in 1870 already gave us the right to vote, but they still discriminated against our voting rights.
That's incorrect.
But the same people that discriminated against our voting rights were some of the main people that actually started like the 1965 Voter Rights Act, though. That's what I came about. Like, a lot of people think that's when we were given our rights to vote. So, but
in the 1800s, slavery was at its finest. We were given no rights. We were still fighting for freedom. That's why Frederick Douglass and all
still are today. You're right.
So there was no such thing as a Negro being able to vote anywhere when everything that was being ran was white.
Oh no, they're able to vote. They're able to vote because I'll give you a perfect example. Like right after the Civil War, like a lot of people don't know, like the Republican Party.
Let me find my documents in my video.
Like the Republican Party actually started as a Black people party. They were the Republican Party were the anti-slavery party.
All Black people.
You know? Like, a lot of people don't like know that. Like the first elected officials, exactly. And then the Democrats and the KKK started killing them. But then you fast forward to the 1960s, like before the Voter Right Act, we had LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson. We said, I'll have them N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. But if you pay attention, like, look at our pictures, how we dress in our communities before we started voting Democrat. Like, look at how we dress. Dresses, our women look fine, like everything else. So, you know what I mean? Wasn't no butt lifts or none of that shit. Oh, my bad language. None of that stuff. You know, people weren't getting fake breasts. None of that stuff. Men weren't walking around with their pants hanging down.
All right, hold on, John. Okay.
But it wasn't until like the 60s when the Democrats, like, wait a minute, there's a lot of these Black folks. We could get votes. We could stay in power by using them. We could start making promises, which they always do. We could start making promises. I'm not saying Republicans are all good though, because I don't like what they're doing either. You know, I'm saying like if you're supposed to hold an oath, why aren't they standing up right now? You know.
I want to say something right quick because we got to get out of the rhetoric. First of all, if we were able to vote, then we wouldn't have people like Fannie Lou Hamer and all of that stuff that was coming along trying to make absolutely sure we could be a part of voting. And anyway, voting is even important. Fuck voting, because if then after they did so-called,
it's still elections these days, so voting don't matter. You're right.
Can I please finish? See, sometimes you got to listen to what people telling you.
Go ahead, proceed. You're right.
All I'm trying to say, I don't know how old you are, sweetie, but I'm 49 years old, and all I do is fucking history. because history repeats itself if you don't pay attention to what the hell is going on.
Yes.
So listen to what
Yep.
I'm telling you. Even when they so-called gave a black person rights to vote, they created what we call the electoral colleges. So if voting was so important, why does it take 27 electors or that so a certain
Yeah,
amount of
that's a big thing with the electoral college.
I can answer that. I can
Well,
answer that.
that's
I
wait
can
a
answer
minute.
that,
Let me just finish. Let me finish. This was the way to control the voting. So if 1 million people voted for Donald Trump, we should have been counting 1 million ballots, not 27 motherfucking Perkawoods sitting behind the scenes deciding who they want to cherry pick and put in office.
Yes, ma'am.
Voting is not for us. I don't care how much y'all push that shit, and anybody who participates in that really is not paying attention to the strategic things that they're using, because those are house niggas that they put in their office. Them ain't our niggas. Ain't no
Nah, they're not.
don't
They're
ever
not.
get in office. They never let nobody
Freaking
like me.
clowns.
If they never would let somebody like Nundy come and run for damn president, knowing the fucking mentality that I have. Because as soon as
You
I
know what
get
the crazy
there,
part is, sister? You know what the
If I can
crazy part
interject,
is?
Auntie, if I can interject,
They'll label you. They'll label
we
you what
don't,
they
we
are.
don't
That's the crazy
participate
part.
on a
They
minuscule
reject.
level of politics. We don't even vote for our aldermans. We don't vote for our school board presidents. We don't pay attention to any of the elections or pay attention to what controls our neighborhoods as far as elections are concerned in the political process. And I think that is the start of the problem. First off, we don't even know who controls our community.
but see, even still, it doesn't make a difference, is what I'm telling you, unless you have built your own government, is what I'm trying to tell everybody. It don't damn matter. They already know who the hell is going to be in their government. They already know who they're going to place in those seats. If
People
it
are
was
selected.
controlled,
Yep.
if it was
I
controlled,
only
at the
beg the
time
difference
then,
because like my vote mattered when it came to a communal issue before. It's because I voted for a certain thing and went to a city council meeting or whatever, and a light post was put in, you know what I'm saying, in a place of where, you know, I voted for it or whatever, and I got the chance to speak. So like, you know, during a city town meeting. So
now,
we
you
don't
might not like what I'm
participate in.
say, Miss Embassy, but let me tell you something.
Listen.
They're going to let 1 or 2 niggas get in there and make it seem like you made a damn difference. That's how they keep you asleep.
I understand. I understand.
This is what I'm saying, and I'm not downgrading what you're doing, but see, this is what they call. That's why the Panthers always talk observation, then participation.
Okay.
If all the niggas
You know
step
what?
away right now and we don't vote, guess what? They still gonna put Trump in. The 46 presidents was already picked long before they were put in office, and they've been doing this.
But if
This
you're
last election
very
was different, though. This
represented
last election was
from the
different, though.
beginning, if you're represented, they
This
can't
last
really
this last
do
election
too
was
much.
different though, because they did things that they shouldn't have done. They took away our right. Like, here's the thing: I don't care if you don't like the person or not, though, but that's our right. That's why they want to tell you, like for instance, like they spend billions of dollars trying to convince you of this or this didn't happen or that happened to take away your right, because the voting didn't matter. They want to waste so much resources and so much energy on it.
Exactly.
Yes, they
Unless you know
would.
voting
Yes,
does
they
matter.
would.
See,
Yes, they
see,
would.
voting when it does work, that's our power. That makes sure the government
let me
isn't
ask you
able
a
to
question.
run
But
over
let me
us.
ask you a
That's
question.
our safeguard.
We have
Well,
a lot
let
of
me-
political
You know what I
power,
mean?
beloved.
Like that's how it's supposed.
I'm going to ask you a serious question.
That's how it's
Why
supposed to.
why we have never had a black president in office? Let me see where y'all minds at with politics. Why we've never had a black president in office then?
Why we never had one?
No, we haven't.
Well,
I think because we never put him in
Obama don't
office.
count. He don't count.
Obama
That'd be
is
with the-
not
that'd be with
black.
the count.
Obama is a
No,
fucking.
he's a biracial man. Like he's
He's
not
an
a black
A-Rab.
man. He's
Yeah.
not a black man. I agree with you, Auntie. He's not a
He
black man.
ain't.
He's a biracial man.
That's what I said. He ain't even biracial, baby. He's an Arab. Look up Barry Sotomayor and tell me who the fuck Obama is.
Barry
Oh,
Sotomayor. She-
Who you say?
You know what though?
Barry
If you look at
Sotomayor.
everything that's
That's his
going
real
on in the Taliban
Excuse me,
and
And
brother.
everything
I'm
else,
sorry.
Wait a
I'm sorry. I didn't hear it.
No,
I'm
let
sorry,
me
brother.
get the name out so somebody can Google what I'm saying.
he got a history. He got a history in Indonesia that a lot of people don't
You
know
keep
about.
cutting me
We'll put
off,
it that
young
way.
man. You keep cutting me off, young man. Let me just get it out.
Yeah, I couldn't hear her what name she said, so I can look it
Look
up.
up Barry Sotomayor.
Barry Sotomayor?
Yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Or either just type this in. What is Obama's real name?
Let everybody get their
Let's
point
make
out
it simple.
and not talk over everybody. Let everybody get their point out. I know we're all passionate, but I was just a part of a panel yesterday on Information Man Show. We were talking about R. Kelly, topic touchy, all type of shit. Some people agreeing with it and all that. So I was able to have that. No one cutting everybody off. Everybody speaking their point. If you have something, get a piece of paper and a pencil and take notes and the things that you want to respond to. That's how we really dialogue, not rush to get our points off. We have to get a piece of paper, jot in your phone. If you got a point that you remember in somebody thing, so you don't got to rush it and you can remember it so we can get everything that we want to get off. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
sir. I apologize.
no apology to nothing, because we ain't doing nothing to nobody. We all passionate. But I want to hear y'all. I'm listening to y'all. So I want to hear y'all all, and I want to hear all y'all views. Y'all go ahead, though. Y'all continue building. Go ahead, Nandy. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, y'all.
No, you good. Look up Barry Soroto. And if you
Barry, Barry.
Soroto?
Yeah, I'm finna spell it for you. Barry. Let me get his last name.
You want me to bring up a quick screen share of this thing?
Yeah, please do it.
Tell me real quick. So I'm still waiting for your screen share too, Sister Nandy. But tell me how you spell the name. Barry.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my notes now so I can spell it correctly because it's weird.
Sorota, Serota.
Like Soroto, like you will spell it in Spanish?
Yes, it's Soroto, but it's a silent letter. Hold on, wait a minute.
I just wanted to say hi to Sister Auntie Nandy. You're amazing.
Who was Barry Soroto?
It's Obama. I'm finna send it. I'm finna pull it up right now. I'm getting my notes so I can tell you exactly how to spell it.
Oh yeah, Barry Soroto, S-O-E, Sotoro.
Yeah,
Sotoro.
Oh, it's Sotoro.
It's
pull
Sotoro.
that up. Yes.
Look, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. I'm gonna show you how to screen share this thing real quick. Am I showing a video or not?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
No, I just wanted to say hi to Auntie Nandy.
Hey, beautiful.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, sweetie.
That's good. I love every single time you talk.
Thank you, baby. I'm glad I got people that listen.
Hold on. I'm gonna screen share the screen. Okay. It's Sotoro.
It's funny. I fought with everybody I loved eventually.
I don't know what I just clicked on something. What is this? I just clicked on anything. I could go back.
Oh, Sotoro.
It's Sotoro like that. It's spelled like that. Hold on. I just pressed back on Google, so you'll be able to dictate if I need to go somewhere else. Hold on. It's moving a little slow.
Obama is an Arab. He was sent and he was planted. That's why his middle name is Hussein. Nobody actually clicks on the Hussein name like Saddam Hussein or any of that unless you're one of the Iranians.
Yeah, but they made this connection to him, and he's connected to like Cheney or the white people too.
Right.
Yeah.
Buddy tried to tell us Buddy really, like the last president, really tried to tell us about a whole lot of this stuff, and everybody like demonized this guy.
And let me tell you why
he was like, abrasive, and he was just abrasive guy, and he was not diplomatic in how he spoke. So he really, got the short end of the stick, but dude was honestly telling the truth like the whole time. That's how I feel about it.
A lot of people don't know that Michelle Obama is a man as well. Her name was Michael Robinson. Obama was the first homosexual president, and he was the whole blindfold to the black people because, again, what they weren't telling people, it was going to be a rise and some real riots if George Bush or any of the Bushes had made it back into office. So they had to mind fuck us again by putting a Arab that looks like us in office, just like they're doing with Kamala Harris over here, because she's not one of us either.
I got kicked off Twitter because I have another page now, but I got kicked off Twitter because I called her a transracial person.
Mm-hmm. And see, the thing is with Obama,
I was like, no, you're not black. Like I don't understand. Like I just didn't understand it. I was like, you're not black.
If you look up Michelle Obama was a man. Her original name was Michael Robinson. Her and Barack Obama. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can we explain their kids?
Easy. There's a video of those kids. Let me explain something to you. We all can look alike. All they had to do was go back to an Arabic country. Mm-hmm. And they have a video up of the actual parents of those children because they got tired of playing this game. And they came forward and told that those were their two children, not Obama's. All of this was a game that they played to mind fuck the black people. And now we got a black president, so everybody thought everything was going to change. We done overcame, ain't shit happened, but them blindfolding us again. Because if they contained it before, then they're going to continue to contain it because they never will allow any of us to get in their government and gain any power. I don't give a damn how much voting we do.
Auntie, I love you, but I honestly don't believe that Michelle is a man.
Well, she is. Go and look at the videos. Google it. You sitting right here with me. Don't do me like that. Just go look it up.
Agree,
go to YouTube.
I will look up whatever you tell me to look up, and I will come to a conclusion. That's my personal belief before I look up your information.
Let me give you some good videos. All you got to do is go to YouTube and type in "Is Michelle Obama a man?" and then you will see her with a penis sticking out. You will see her dancing on different shows with her penis bouncing back and forth. She was on Ellen, the Ellen DeGeneres show. Go and look, penis going all over the place. That is a man. Look at her hands. Look at her shoulders. You can actually tell that they even have comparisons. And she's a lot taller than Obama, and we've never seen her in a pair of heels or a bathing suit. Out of all of the presidents that we've had out here, you've never seen Michelle Obama visible.
Yeah. Let's stare where we going now. Let's stare it to where we going now. We're not sticking on Michelle. We going to where we going. Let's go. Come on. Can we bigger than that? Y'all could Google all that stuff if y'all need to Google that. Research. That's it. When people are speaking, y'all do your research.
I honestly feel like,
Let's
you
move
know, in
forward.
regards
I've seen
to
videos. Let's move forward. I've seen videos. Let's move forward.
Now, I wanted to get back on the suffrage movement.
Yes.
If
Let's
I
get
can
back
share
there
my
then.
screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can share my screen so the young brothers.
I'm sticking on Michelle because she ain't helping us nowhere.
Yeah, that's why I want to see the suffrage movement thing that you had.
I'm interested in that.
On this one piece of information, Nandy, I would say that because Sir was asking, was he born in there? They said he applied for something under the name Sotoro or something like that. So that there is some history to this Sotoro name, this Barry Sotoro. So yeah, we could do the history on that. You know what I mean? I already jotted that down, I think. Let me see. Barry Sotoro, did I? Nope. Let me just jot that real quick. Barry S-O-E Toro, Soetoro. I'm gonna do some follow-up history on that, but we ain't gotta stick. We could keep it pushing. Guess sister. Did you share the screen yet for me? Say whatever you want, Queen.
I'm getting ready to share it right now while you guys are talking.
No, y'all talk. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I don't agree with
what
that other Cynthia lady was saying in the other debate or whatever. I do feel like, you know, I love you know, my people, and I just feel like we need to stop pointing fingers and just try to heal from within, you know?
I agree totally. History in a nutshell.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
That was a dope statement.
Hit play.
You up? Your screen is up.
Okay, I wanted to show this so people can kind of, matter of fact, that's part 2. Damn it. Let me go up here and put part 1.
All right, good. You just get in part 1. You just fix it up how you're ready. When you're ready, bring it back on. You already know Sister Nandy is about to share a screen. The conversation could go wherever it's gonna go. Who did we just lose? We just lost somebody. Who did we just lose?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another.
There it goes. Hold up.
Okay, you was up there already. Okay,
you can maximize it. Maximize it too, Sister Nandy. Shout out to
How do I do it?
Melanated Agenda, everybody in there. You're able to join us live. I'd rather y'all come up here and talk with us about whatever. We was crossing over from Cynthia G, talking about different things on a Taz exclusive platform. It was a lot of things: Black, American, Indian, Native American, gender, women's fear, man's fear, red pill, blue pill, all type of things. So join the discussion. Sister Nandy's about to join something. You about to share something on the suffrage?
Let me ask you a question. How do I maximize this, sweetie?
Oh, just by pressing the little YouTube maximize. Just your little YouTube maximize thing on the corner right there. Just that little box in the corner right in the bottom of the box. That little bottom YouTube box.
Okay.
Yeah, on the right.
Can y'all see it now?
Okay. We can see it the whole time. We see
it the whole time. I'm saying
yes, ma'am.
Maximize.
Oh, better yet, I think it says exit that. Exit it. Exit that. Exit that. You can just share it the way you shared it. Share it however you're sharing it. Okay, yeah, because we can see it like that.
Okay, let me let this play.
Okay, there go Nico. Nico dropped off. Link in the chat, y'all. Y'all join. Get Sister Nandy. I'm putting mine on mute so that we don't echo.
The early 1900s gave rise to the next generation of suffragists, alongside the New Woman movement, which actively encouraged women's presence in public spaces. Activities such as getting a college education, riding bicycles, and speaking in public were considered taboo for women to do. Women were now more actively involved in the public arena, and the torch had been passed to the new generation of suffragists. Leaders like Harriet Stanton Blatch, Carrie Chapman Catt, and Alice Paul would continue to lead women in the fight for the vote. However, like the first generation of suffragists, this new generation did not come without disagreements on strategies. The two rival organizations mentioned earlier, the American Women's Suffrage Association and the National Women's Suffrage Association, merged in 1890 to create the National American Women's Suffrage Association. After the merger, the association shifted to fighting for suffrage at state levels. When Alice Paul joined the association in January 1913, she was solely responsible for reviving the drive for a constitutional amendment. Paul and her followers grew impatient with the association's slow progress and decided to take a more confrontational approach, arguing that Democrats would not work to enfranchise women, even though they controlled Congress and the presidency. When Paul and her followers became more militant in their tactics, the National American Women's Suffrage Association withdrew its support, causing yet another split. Paul, together with Lucy Burns, formed the National Woman's Party in 1916. While the National American Women's Suffrage Association was more mainstream and had more lobbying power, the National Woman's Party was smaller and was viewed as more vocal and confrontational. The National Woman's Party's most notable demonstration was the Silent Sentinels Vigil outside of the White House between 1917 and 1919. The President of the United States at this time was Woodrow Wilson, who became president in 1913. At first, Wilson's attitude towards women's suffrage was indifferent. But as the years went by, his views shifted due to increasing political pressure. Ironically, it would be another war to really give the women's suffrage movement the momentum it needed to pass the 19th Amendment, World War I. President Wilson was forced to break his isolationist stance, and the United States entered the conflict in April 1917. Suffragists once again had to put the right to vote on hold. However, many suffragists, including Carrie Chapman Catt, believed that women could use World War I as an opportunity to show the country that women indeed deserve the right to vote. Catt and the National American Women's Suffrage Association encouraged women to fulfill their patriotic duties by stepping into roles normally performed by men. And they did. While men were off fighting the Great War, women on the home front contributed to the war effort by making arms and ammunition, sewing uniforms, working in steel mills and oil refineries, and serving as nurses to help treat America's wounded soldiers. Unfortunately, not all women felt quite so patriotic. Alice Paul's National Woman's Party continued to picket outside of the White House. Paul argued, "Why should women step up to support a country which will not allow women the right to vote?" Paul even went so far as to compare President Wilson to Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany. These actions were largely frowned upon, deemed unpatriotic. So much so that National Woman's Party members, including Paul herself, were imprisoned and subjected to abuse at the hands of prison guards. President Wilson was appalled when he received news of the suffering Paul and her followers endured, and immediately demanded their release. Women's efforts during World War I and the abuse of Alice Paul and her followers were the two key motivating factors to shift Wilson's stance into fully backing the women's suffrage movement. With Wilson's support, you would think that women's suffrage was a given, right? Well, not quite. In January 1918, a bill passed the House of Representatives, but was blocked by the Senate. Another vote was scheduled for March of that year, but opponents kept delaying, and there would not be another chance for the suffrage amendment until September. No matter how hard Wilson pleaded with the Senate to pass the suffrage bill, his pleas fell on deaf ears. As it turns out, most of the opposition in the Senate came from Southern Democrats. Women's enfranchisement was stalled in the Senate for the time being, but not all hope was lost. In 1918, 3 more states enfranchised women, raising the total number to 21. The midterm election of 1918 broke the stalemate, for Congress shifted to a Republican majority, and on June 4th, 1919, the measure for the 19th Amendment finally passed. But the fight was not over yet. In order to ratify a new federal amendment, 3/4 of the states have to approve it. In 1919, there were 48 states, which meant that the country needed 36 to fully recognize the 19th Amendment. And boy, was there still some resistance in the state level. Southern states continued to push against the 19th Amendment, but by mid-June 1920, suffragists had managed to raise the number of states to 35, only 1 more state to go. 7 solid South states rejected the 19th Amendment, which left only 2 possible states to reach that majority: North Carolina and Tennessee. President Wilson urged Tennessee's governor, Albert Roberts, to make the state the last one needed for ratification, and on August 18, 1920, the vote barely passed the Tennessee House of Representatives, which signaled to the U.S. that the 19th Amendment was officially the law of the land. Secretary of State Bainbridge Colby certified the 19th Amendment 8 days later, on August 26, 1920. The 1920 presidential election was the first presidential election in which women in every state could vote. The effort to enfranchise women took over 70 years of hard work and several generations of suffragists to make it happen. This, however, did not mean that all women could vote. The 19th Amendment meant that mainly white women could vote. The battle for full suffrage, to include African Americans and minorities, still raged. Despite the progress made for women's rights and suffrage before the passing of the 19th Amendment, African American suffragists were still widely excluded. Many suffragists, including Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt, believed that advocating for anything other than suffrage would dilute or diminish the issue. After the passing of the 19th Amendment, some African American women in the North and in the West got to vote. However, other state legislatures, particularly in Southern states, went out of their way to continue disenfranchising African Americans by introducing more unnecessary hurdles: grandfather clauses, literacy tests, and poll taxes kept African Americans from casting votes. Some individuals, like Ku Klux Klan members, even resorted to using lynching and other forms of abuse to discourage African Americans from approaching ballot boxes. It's noteworthy that in the face of all this inhumane treatment, suffragists like Ida B. Wells and Mary McLeod Bethune stood their ground and kept fighting for African American suffrage. It would not be until the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 1960s where African Americans could finally secure the right to vote once and for all. After a string of racial incidents, President Lyndon B. Johnson called upon legislators in 1965.
Let me stop this. I'm so sorry because I showed y'all part 2 first. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me? I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
Let me
Yes,
go
ma'am.
up here because I wanted y'all to see the part 1 on how they treated the black women. I'm so sorry. It's not but about 15 minutes long, and then I can jump right back into that one. I just wanted to get to the end. And I looked up and I'm like, wait a minute, that's part 2. Let me go to part 1. Okay, part 1 is only 7 minutes long, so it's not going to be too much away from where we were.
To another edition of History in a Nutshell. The year 2020 marks the 100-year anniversary of one of the crowning achievements in United States law, the passing of the Constitution's 19th Amendment, which granted women across the country the right to vote. The 19th Amendment took more than 70 years to achieve, and even longer for full voting rights to be extended to everyone, regardless of race. When you hear the phrase women's suffrage, some key figures which come to mind may be Susan B. Anthony, Ida B. Wells, Inez Milholland, Carrie Chapman Catt, or Alice Paul. While women were naturally at the forefront of this suffrage movement, there were also many notable men who supported them from behind the scenes, including famed abolitionist Frederick Douglass and inventor Thomas Edison. Both the 19th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 needed to come about and were indeed a step in the right direction for equal rights for all citizens of the United States. The women's suffrage movement was not an easy one, however, for it was plagued with political and social opposition and schisms from within. The question of women's suffrage in the U.S., not unlike the question of slavery, had been debated long before the women's suffrage movement's humble beginnings in 1848. In the development of the Constitution, the Founding Fathers pondered about women's right to vote, but ultimately passed it off for the states to decide for themselves. Due to the social norms of the 18th and 19th centuries, women were viewed as second-class citizens, and certainly did not enjoy the same rights as men. A woman's place was, say, in the home, and should not concern herself with politics or the plights of society. Social conditions for enslaved people were even worse, and these would serve as the causes of both movements for abolition and women's rights. In the early years of the women's suffrage movement, both the abolition and suffrage movements were intertwined. The first generation of suffragists rose to prominence from the abolition movement. Notable figures like Susan B. Anthony, Lucretia Mott, and Lucy Stone worked together with Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass in the fight for equal rights. The Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 was the first women's rights convention in the U.S., where Elizabeth Cady Stanton famously decried women's lack of rights. Abolition and women's rights would remain intertwined until the American Civil War caused the first major rift in these equal rights campaigns. The fight for women's suffrage had to be placed on the back burner, so to speak, in order to focus on the rights of the enslaved. The suffragists naturally believed that women would gain equal rights alongside freed slaves, but this was not the case. In 1869, suffragists were asked by Republicans to support the 15th Amendment, which granted voting rights only to African American men. The sentiment was that the nation cannot handle two great reforms at once. This need to compromise drove a wedge between the abolition and women's rights movements. The argument now became one of race versus gender. Elizabeth Cady Stanton argued that educated white women should get the vote over slaves and sons of slaves first, while Frederick Douglass argued that African American men should be first. Abolitionist Frances Ellen Watkins Harper remarked, "When it was a question of race, I let the lesser question of sex go. But the white women all go for sex, letting race occupy a lesser position." The women's suffrage movement suffered yet another split, this time from within. Disagreements on strategies arose, which caused suffragists to form two rival groups. The American Women's Suffrage Association, led by Lucy Stone and Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, believed petitioning to state governments was the best approach for achieving women's right to vote. The other group, led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, was the National Women's Suffrage Association. The National Women's Suffrage Association fought mainly for a federal remedy, which they believed would be the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. So bitter was the rivalry between these two groups that they would not reconcile their differences until 1890. Racial tensions would cause an even further divide in the fight for women's suffrage. African American suffragists, who were essential in the movement before, were cast aside. Even Frederick Douglass was denied entry into a convention in Atlanta for fear of alienating potential suffrage supporters. Jim Crow laws and segregation enabled women's suffrage chapters in the South to deny African American women entry into these groups. While African American women were basically left on their own to fight for suffrage, they by no means gave up. Throughout the late 1800s, the women's suffrage movement's results were pretty mixed. While the eastern states would prove to be the toughest to crack, sentiments in the western states were not quite so hostile. The women's suffrage movement gained much needed momentum in the West. See, in western states and territories, women were viewed as essential citizens and needed to be able to vote, for the populations out west were much smaller. The Wyoming Territory enfranchised women in 1869, followed by Utah in 1870, Colorado in 1893, and Idaho in 1896. The women's suffrage movement gained even further support when the Women's Christian Temperance Union joined the fray in the late 1870s. As support for women's suffrage grew, so too did resistance. One of the temperance union's goals was to ban alcohol, and when the group started advocating for suffrage, this in turn caused the liquor industries to actively resist women getting the right to vote. Other groups opposed women's suffrage as well, such as textile mill owners and railroad owners, out of fears that women would drastically change labor laws and cause their businesses to lose money. There were even some women who opposed the suffrage movement. Anti-suffragists were afraid that the women's suffrage movement would destroy the family unit and increase the number of socialist voters in America. From 1896 to 1909, over 160 legislative measures were proposed for consideration. Out of those, only 6 were put to a vote, all of them failing. This period, as Susan B. Anthony put it, was known as the doldrums.
Okay, now I'm gonna go back to part 2, so it'll start right where it was, so y'all can finish in the last part of that. I can go up a little bit because I know where we was.
As it turns out, most of the opposition in the Senate came from Southern Democrats. Women's enfranchisement was stalled in the Senate for the time being, but not all hope was lost. In 1918, 3 more states enfranchised women, raising the total number to 21. The midterm election of 1918 broke the stalemate, for Congress shifted to a Republican majority, and on June 4th, 1919, the measure for the 19th Amendment finally passed. But the fight was not over yet. In order to ratify a new federal amendment, 3/4 of the states have to approve it. In 1919, there were 48 states, which meant that the country needed 36 to fully recognize the 19th Amendment. And boy, was there still some resistance in the state level. Southern states continued to push against the 19th Amendment, but by mid-June 1920, suffragists had managed to raise the number of states to 35, only 1 more state to go. 7 solid South states rejected the 19th Amendment, which left only 2 possible states to reach that majority: North Carolina and Tennessee. President Wilson urged Tennessee's governor, Albert Roberts, to make the state the last one needed for ratification, and on August 18, 1920, the vote barely passed the Tennessee House of Representatives, which signaled to the U.S. that the 19th Amendment was officially the law of the land. Secretary of State Bainbridge Colby certified the 19th Amendment 8 days later, on August 26, 1920. The 1920 presidential election was the first presidential election in which women in every state could vote. The effort to enfranchise women took over 70 years of hard work and several generations of suffragists to make it happen. This, however, did not mean that all women could vote. The 19th Amendment meant that mainly white women could vote. The battle for full suffrage, to include African Americans and minorities, still raged. Despite the progress made for women's rights and suffrage before the passing of the 19th Amendment, African American suffragists were still widely excluded. Many suffragists, including
pause right there. Pause when they said that African American wasn't even included in that.
Or diminished.
What you say, Boo?
Now I was saying pause right there so we can expound on that point right there. They said that African American women wasn't included in that particular vote. So like that kind of dispels all of those arguments that says that we joined the suffrage movement. We still didn't get the right to vote when we so-called joined these people.
You see what they said the white women was still going a certain way, so the black people separated. The abolitionists said, hell no.
Right. So like all the arguments that was, being like, touted out here, apparently by what you're demonstrating here is dispelled. Like it's debunked. We didn't have the rights. Like, they say that we joined the suffrage movement and all that kind of stuff. We still didn't have rights with it. That's what the man just got through saying, ain't it?
And it's written down in history. You could go look at the documents in the voting rights.
Okay, I just wanted to make that poignant and wanted to highlight that particular point in what you were just displaying here. I'm gonna go and mute my mic.
Okay.
The issue. After the passing of the 19th Amendment, some African American women in the North and in the West got to vote. However, other state legislatures, particularly in southern states.
And let me explain that right quick. When they said some African American women got the right to vote, that's because they were married to white men. If you go back and look at that, they'll show you in the history of voting that all the black women that was listed had white men as mates. That's why they were able to vote.
Went out of their way to continue disenfranchising African Americans by introducing more unnecessary hurdles, grandfather clauses, literacy tests, and poll taxes kept African Americans from casting votes. Some individuals, like Ku Klux Klan members, even resorted to using lynching and other forms of abuse to discourage African Americans from approaching ballot boxes. It's noteworthy that in the face of all this inhumane treatment, suffragists like Ida B. Wells and Mary McLeod Bethune stood their ground and kept fighting for African American suffrage. It would not be until the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 1960s where African Americans could finally secure the right to vote once and for all. After a string of racial incidents, President Lyndon B. Johnson called upon legislators in 1965 to enact expansive voting rights protections, which came in the form of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This Voting Rights Act expressly prohibits racial discrimination in voting and enforces the voting rights guaranteed in the 14th and 15th Amendments. These victories in women's suffrage also served to influence the women's movement in the 1970s, where figures such as Shirley Chisholm and Gloria Steinem fought for other crucial rights women rightfully deserved. Thanks to the contributions and efforts of countless women and men fighting for civil rights and suffrage, now all citizens, regardless of gender or race, can have a voice in U.S. elections.
Okay.
See, you really dispelled all the arguments that we were just straight up on board with the feminist movement because we had struggles even getting into that arena.
But it
And
also goes for
one,
like the OG.
growing up in the Chicago area, we had Ida B. Wells projects, and we know it's a Bethune-Cookman HBCU school and everything like that or whatever, and we honored those women as well. And we weren't on the front line as far as rallying the feminist movement. We didn't even really get inside of it that much from what that gentleman was just saying right here on your report.
And see, this is even documented in the paperwork, though, when you go back and look at the voting rights. And then another reason why the electoral colleges was created, because they said, okay, now they're letting black people get in here. We're going to figure out another way to control all of this. Because, see, like they said, racial issues. Black people was killing. They were lynching white people. They were going through hell. They were doing whatever. Y'all ain't gonna let us have no rights to work. You ain't gonna let us have no rights to vote, go to school.
Yeah, so we was bucking. Yeah,
that's right. A lot of people really disagree with that though, because there was also a lot of black people like, Malcolm X and people like that was going against the civil rights movement, because we had already been civil. Shit, we've been civil with dogs, billy clubs, and water hoses. Civil was.
I believe that Malcolm, didn't he preach like separate but equal?
Yes, separation but equal. That's a lot.
Right. That's what I believe in. Like, you know, because everybody community is not supposed to mix, and we have different ideologies and values. So I really didn't disagree with that sentiment, honestly.
Right. And that was another thing that the Panthers was saying, power to all people in backgrounds and races, but just in your area.
Yeah. Like, you know, I don't have a problem with white folks saying that they want to replicate their children and you know, whatever they want to empower themselves. That's on them. That's their community. They want to do that. That's fine. Just don't impede on my traffic.
And see, another thing too, historically, the word racist or racism has been used incorrectly.
Yeah.
We are all races. Everybody.
The love of one's race, a love of a race is, to put an IST, is just a love of your own race. A person that's loved their own race. That's what that is. Now, if you're a segregist and all this other stuff, that's some other stuff. But if you love your race, you know, that's all the race is, you know.
So I'm not mad at white folk for loving their own race. I'm not mad at them at all for that.
But see, that's what they teach. They don't teach us to go against prejudice. That you prejudice.
If you like hate me or try to cause harm to me because, like, you know what I'm saying, you love your race and hate me, then that's a problem. But if you just loving your race or whatever and want to replicate yourself, then I have absolutely no problem with that.
Yeah, but that comes with what Sis and Andy's going into, which is prejudice. So that's the real term that we're really talking about, the different prejudices.
Oh yeah, I was getting into that too. Yeah,
prejudice. Good though, y'all.
Yeah, like the prejudice situation, we don't fight against that. Like I hear a lot of people talk about reparations. Reparations really was strictly for sharecroppers, discrimination.
You know, they got what they gave reparations to. They gave reparations to the slave owners. That's who they gave reparations to. So that's why they feel they don't owe you nothing, because because the South lost a whole lot of money by giving away the slaves, and they gave them reparations. They didn't feel that you needed any.
Go ahead.
I'm talking about the reality of the situation. I'm not talking about if it's wrong or right. I'm just talking about the reality of what the government did.
I get it. You're making a point on the sharecroppers. I just want everybody to finish their points and not just be cut off in the middle of their points.
Oh, okay.
They never have to make their points, and then they have to come back to make the points, and we start going in circles. So just go ahead, you going with the sharecropper, Nandy.
Yeah, see what people don't understand, they be thinking because people got money like the Indians and stuff like that, it had something to do with reparations. No. Reparations strictly was something that happened with the USDA was discriminating against sharecroppers. They weren't allowing them to sell their produce and things like that. They wasn't giving them, you know, adequate tools or resourceful things to keep their gardens and all of that stuff going. And even when they was going to the markets, their stuff was getting lesser prices than what it was really worth. So if anybody is older, this is where the reparations situation came in at. When you hear people talking about the 40 acres and a mule law, that was actually not something that was documented. It was actually put on the table for people to speak on. But after Lincoln was killed, that was immediately removed off the table. So the 40 acres and a mule, it never even passed. It never even went through the system. So you got all these people out here screaming about, I need my 40 acres and a mule. I need this and that. When the presidency changed, they had the rights at that time to change whatever laws, rules, or whatever they had on the table. And one of the things is that they took back was the 40 acres and a mule. The reparations, what people are saying about sharecroppers that was never given, is because a lot of those people, land was taken, farms and stuff like that, and they're owed because it was wrongfully taken through predatory lending and, of course, discrimination, which we get into the prejudice part because of the color of their skin. So if we're not fighting and arguing about the actual things that fits suitable people, if you talking about 40 acres and a mule, you can kill that. It was never even put into play. So quit worrying about what 40 acres and a mule you think was owed to your people. Okay, secondary, if you're looking at sharecropping situations, unless your family member was a sharecropper, then you don't get reparations. So what part does that play for the people that were slaves? Because slavery just meant labor. It just meant a job. That's what slavery meant. They misinterpret this shit with all the latchings and the whippings. And yeah, it was brutal because that's your boss. That's just like if you frying French fries. And if a policy of your boss is to latch your ass 3 times because you burn French fries, that was just the policies. But slavery was an actual job. So what reparations do you get from that? And majority of the people, I'm sorry, go ahead, sweetheart.
No, I'll say yes, ma'am. I was agreeing with you.
So, you know, if you look at that, a majority of the people that was enslaved, like when Uda just brought up segregation, okay, they said, fuck, y'all want freedom? Get the hell over there and stay over there. Now, the average person would come back and say segregation was horrible. We had inhabitable conditions. But see, those are what I consider to be the lazy group of people, because if you could go work for Mouser, if you could pick Mouser's corn, if you could wash Mouser's toilet, fix the same shit up over here in your segregated area. So segregation wasn't bad to me. It's just that my people didn't stand on their own 10. There was so many people that was used to being on them damn plantations that they didn't figure out how to function correctly. And this is where the civil rights movement came in at. We need Mouser. We can't do it without
and expound on your about sharecropping. My grandfather was a sharecropper. And how he made his fortune is because he stole some of the crops and sold it to buy his own car. He drove his ass the fuck up out of Mississippi into the north, like, you know what I'm saying? So it was a lot of functions that we actually did. And matter of fact, the first car that he actually had, he sold it to a guy because he wanted to create a school system, a bus system to take kids back and forth to school because they had to walk. So he gave up his first car to the bank, so this gentleman can have, like, you know, a bus system for him in Mississippi, for him to have, like, you know what I'm saying, a way for kids to go back and forth to school without them having to walk and, you know, have messed up shoes and all that kind of stuff. So it was a whole lot of brothers, and we don't actually really know real history as far as like how we did when we were back then. And
if you go back and check your grandfather's history, I'm sure it's documented because it is everywhere.
Yes, ma'am. I actually know, like, I have a picture of my family slave owner.
No,
his name was James Martin.
He probably is owed a whole lot of money. See, a lot of people never really went into how the Indians, or what they consider to be Indians.
Well, I'm Choctaw.
I'm
Choctaw from Mississippi.
Yeah,
I'm a Choctaw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that those tribes don't exist, but we're not from Indonesia. See, there's a difference. The term Indian didn't come in until the $5 Indians came here. That wasn't the term. That wasn't what we were called. You went about.
You can look up the chief of the Choctaw Indians is right now, and he looked like a whole white man at the moment.
Was it saying
he's a $5 Indian?
What I'm asking, yeah, $5 Indians. But what I'm saying is, those were people that actually came over here under perpetration. There were a bunch of Arabs and white people. We were tribes, the Gullah Geechee tribes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. My great grandmother was Gullah Geechee, and who, like, you know, passed us down our land in Mississippi.
Exactly. And see, that's another reason why a lot of people have the argument that we're the Native Americans, which we weren't Americans, but we were the native tribes, were already here before the invasions of America and all of the other things that took place. So identifying under an Indian is still not giving you the actual accessibility to who you really are.
Well, from what I read, the first census, we wasn't allowed to claim Indian. It was illegal.
It was for us.
Because they wanted to put the dark-skinned Indians inclusive with the Africans. That's what the first census was about, and they didn't allow you to even say that you were Indian. You had to say that you were, you know, Negro. They classified all of us as Negro, and a lot of us were Aboriginal, and some of us were African, and we bred intermingly with each other. And, you know what I'm saying, we're fighting over, it becomes a circular argument because we're fighting over, like, where ancestors come from. We're mixed amongst a whole everything. We really are, especially in America. We're mixed with everything. Like, my granny, like, you know, I don't know. I was born in 82. And our grandmothers and all of us was like, okay, you got Indian. And it was a big thing. Like, oh, she said she got Indian in her family. Ooh. but we really did have, like, you know, we were, you know, native. And our grannies and our great grannies told us